like microplate that with the food. I hope you reload it again. There's a lot of food, and we paid for it, so please eat away. All right. Okay, I think we're there, and there's Delug. There's Sammy. So all the people that are going to talk next are in the room. So that's a good thing. All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started, and we appreciate that you are taking an evening to join us today. I'm Russ Sperling, Director of Visual and Performing Arts for San Diego Unified School District, and we are here for our second conversation around how we support arts education for all students in San Diego. And so last year, can I just see a little show of hands if you were here last year for our conversation? Yeah, so a lot of repeat customers. It was a great conversation, and we have this is the 2025 version of that conversation, and we're very excited about what we're going to be discussing tonight. So thank you for coming. I just want to address the what could be an elephant in the room for a moment. Yes, I am retiring, and thank you for that very mixed response. But I'll be in the job until June 30th, and I'll be around. We're not going anywhere. And certainly the work around arts education and making sure we have access for all students every day is not going to be leaving my core energy and spirit. So, but it's an opportunity I couldn't say no. It was such a great offer. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. So this is an opportunity for us, those of us that have a collective interest in arts education, to come together and talk about how we can do better. And we're facing some challenges in San Diego. San Diego Unified School District is going through a big budget shortfall caused by lots of things. And the city of San Diego, likewise. But kids are only in fourth grade once. They're only in ninth grade once. We have to keep doing the work. We have to keep serving them. We have to keep arts education alive for all kids. And we know, as our vision in San Diego Unified states, that the arts transform lives. It is the thing that can really transform lives and keep kids going to school and make them successful and make them that producing member of society that we all want. So, important work. So, to kick us off today, we have a guest from Miami, Sammy Gonzales, who is going to be introduced by Delug Smith. And Delug is going to provide a little context, and in our panel later is going to continue to provide some context as we hear about the successes of Miami and how some of that came from San Diego, so it's kind of coming around, and that's exciting. But now we have a lot we can learn from Miami, and we're going to try to put that in context for what that means for San Diego. So without getting too much further down the road, I'd like to introduce Delug Smith, who probably in this room doesn't really need much of an introduction, but he was the CEO and president of the San Diego Symphony for many years, and has recently been the executive director of the Lewis Prize, which is an organization that just sunsetted recently, and spreading impact around in this space across the country and collecting best practices, and I can't explain it as well as he will, but anyway, please give a warm welcome to Delug.
Thank you, Russ. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. He gave you my name, so I don't need to repeat it. This is an exciting moment, actually. This is a kind of circle story, and really a reminder that we all have something to contribute, we all have something to learn, and that's an ongoing process. So Just going back in history, at San Diego Youth Symphony Conservatory, when I was there, we launched what at the time we called the Community Opus Project. Now I believe it's called Opus Project. And want to acknowledge Michael Remsen, who took over that leadership, and Caitlin, and I'm seeing you here too. Is she here? Okay, so that work has continued for 15 years, celebrating 15 years. And this is work that we started in Chula Vista to basically build community enthusiasm and commitment to providing music education and fundamentally arts education to all students in the Chula Vista Elementary School District. We established that vision in 2008. We got the project started in 2010. Within a sequence of compounding decisions in the district in partnership with community support, the district, after 4 complete years and starting in the 5th year, hired in almost 100 certified visual and performing arts teachers where there had been none for 20 years. And in fact, when we were helping them make that hire, they found the job description. They had the job description for visual and performing arts teachers on file. They just hadn't pulled it out in a long time. They also discovered they had teachers in the district who were visual and performing arts teachers and had been waiting to be invited back to teach their subject matter. And so it really took off. And what enabled us to start that project was participation in a League of American Orchestras program called the Institutional Vision Program. And that was funded by a man named Daniel Lewis, who is a resident of Miami. And so Dan was learning about this work as we were doing it and seeing the incremental successes and then seeing the culminating success, and was very inspired by it and invited me to begin helping him think about how might similar work be undertaken in Miami. So I have actually grown to know the Miami community and many of the nonprofit leaders in the Miami community over the past 10 years, and seen how an effort that is sort of singularly driven the way ours was at San Diego Youth Symphony is not necessarily the way it can always be done. And so I'll give you a couple of quick examples. In Miami, they did start with some after-school programming that was attempting to kind of build some inspiration for the community. But Miami School District is for the entire county. It's now the 3rd largest in the country, 400,000 students. So simply not possible to kind of draw the attention, draw the gravitas that was needed, even with a philanthropist like Daniel involved. So after a few sort of incremental starts, Dan asked me to help facilitate a meeting of a consortium, of a group of nonprofit music organizations, to talk about what might it look like for us to collaborate. That was in 2018, the beginning of 2018. And I soon after left San Diego Youth Symphony to begin the Lewis Prize for Music, which was also working with Dan on a national basis. That workshop that we did essentially led to the realization that there was a partnership fellowship needed, that in order for all these groups to start working and thinking together, they actually needed some inspiration to just do that, to just start collaborating. And so the fellowship was really interesting because it asked each music organization to partner with another entity, music, non-music, but some other entity to work in the schools. One of those who was selected for that fellowship was Sammy Gonzales and Young Musicians Unite with Carroll City Middle School, right in, oh my gosh, I blanked, he'll tell you. I blanked on the name of the community there, Sammy. Miami Gardens, thank you, which is actually its own separate city from Miami City. And that partnership, and what you're gonna hear from Sammy is what that partnership started as, and then how that actually became the hub for all of the nonprofits to be working in alignment with each other, and then how that became the model for undertaking this work in another community. And so here they are, 6 or 7 years later, started that in 2019, beginning of 2019 was that fellowship. So basically 6 years later, they have matured the work in ways that are very different from what we have done here in San Diego. So that's why it's exciting that Russ has invited Sammy to come out, share how it is that he first thought about this work, and then share the role that he's playing coordinating the collaborative with multiple nonprofit partners involved. Sammy himself is a musician. He is a professional musician. He is a music educator. He has I got to visit his studio. There's a studio for professional musicians. There's a studio for the students. He runs a independent music school. He runs this large nonprofit. So he is an impresario, amongst many other things. And he told me that he's wanting to check out music in San Diego tonight. So if you have recommendations for him, let him know. But Sammy Gonzales, come on up here and tell us your story.
It's definitely full circle to be able to be here, especially with Delug, who is someone I've looked up to for a long time. My name is Sammy Gonzales Zeira. I am the CEO founder of Young Musicians Unite. We believe that every child deserves access to a free music education. We're part of in-school music education in Miami-Dade. We work with 9,000 students every single week across 61 schools. Thank you. Our after-school programs are for the kids that want more, the kids that want to go on stage, that want to be in recording studios, that want that professional aspect of their life and to go to college for music. So it's a smaller group of about 200 kids. And out of that, we actually have Lily Kaplan, who just wrote a song with Ice Spice, which was on the radio, and she got a $1 million publishing deal, and she's in LA now. And we have Ceci Leon, who's in a band called Arumas, who just got nominated for a Latin Grammy. So now we're seeing the kids grow up. And another student who just graduated is on the cover of People magazine, Espanol. So it's this girl power that we're seeing over and over and over, but it's in time and it's slowly. So I am also the leader of Arts Access Miami, which is what I'm here to speak about today. Young Musicians Unite serves as the backbone for Arts Access Miami. And Arts Access Miami is a collective impact project where we have 25 of the largest arts and music education organizations in Miami-Dade working together to be able to provide free access for every child. That is the mission, that is the goal. And what we realize is that we cannot do that alone. One organization cannot scale across 397 schools. That is impossible. So the problem, and this is universal in arts, music, or any other space, is that people don't want to collaborate. People work in silos. They see each other as competition, right? They lack strategy because of that. And it was a situation where I was with Chad Bernstein at Guitars Over Guns and Young Musicians Unite, and I was working for a year to fundraise for the school down the street called Jose de Diego Middle School. This is our first expansion. And I get ready to go to school. First day, I get sat down by the principal with Chad. We're looking at each other like, wait, what? We're both in the same school? Why are we both in the same school? We have to fight over the same kids? Like, what is that? So what we realize is that you have this inequity of resources where one school will have 2-3 people fighting for kids while the school down the street will have no one, right? So the solution is to be able to coalition build, to partner with organizations, to have that transparency, to be able to talk about our strategic plans, where we're going, how are we going there, and to be able to have joint fundraising, storytelling, and to be able to have data together. Because how many different ways are there to measure data? One foundation wants you to do this, the other foundation this way, and you're measuring 6 different ways throughout the year. So we're streamlining that to make it more cohesive. So there's always a beginning story. As Luke said, there's actually a funny story. So Arts Access is, you have Dan Lewis, who is the seed fund, but you have Rebecca Fishman-Lipsey, who is the CEO of the Miami Foundation, and she's a powerhouse. And when Dan and her spoke, she was like, all right, cool. I'm going to get the top arts organizations in the room together. We're going to come up with a plan. It's going to be great. And I remember sitting in that room and the chaos that unfolded. And to this very day, she says the worst meeting she's ever had in her life. So because of that, they said, we still have to make people collaborate. So we're going to create the Music Access Fellowship. And like Luke said, everyone needs to partner with someone. So I partnered with Derek Negron of Carroll City Middle School. That's what I do. I like to partner with middle schools. I do grades 5 to 12, but what a lot of people don't realize is that in 2008 in Miami-Dade, after the recession, almost every single inner city middle school program was cut in Miami-Dade. almost all of them. So when I walked into Carroll City Middle School, I walked into an abandoned music room. 2018, 10 years, nothing. And when I looked on the wall, I can see plaques for every year of straight superiors with distinction, the highest level you can get. And then I heard that they had the most revered marching band in all of Miami. So I walk over to the high school, and I meet the band director, and I see a room with 40 kids in the classroom, 12 kids playing, and the other kids are just watching them. And I asked the teacher, what's going on? Why are they just watching, and why aren't they all playing? And he pointed to a bundle of instruments in the corner, all broken, and he said, I don't have enough instruments for all the kids, and this is $20,000 to fix this. So we decided, number one, we were going to the next day pick up all the instruments and fix them, which for us, we were able to do that for $2,000 because we had someone that was a Lutheran that was interested to help us. And then I told the middle school we're going to start in the fall. 2 days later, I get a call from the principal in the middle school, and he says, I have an awkward situation. He said, one student, Tyson, got his friends, and they left their classroom when they found out we have a music program in the fall, and they're upset because they want it now. And I don't know what to do. So I called Dan Lewis, and I told him what happened. I felt awkward about it. And he said, cool, when are you going to start? You're going to start next week? And I was like, okay. There's only 3 months of the school year left, but let's do it. So I went with Jarek Negron. We started teaching these kids. And at the time, he was saying he had 7 feeder elementary schools. And only 23 kids a year were going to his school. That was it. Under enrollment, could not afford to start a music education program, but then couldn't keep the kids because he had nothing to offer them. So because of that, we started the program, and we went to all the open houses at every single one of these schools. And he said, I'm Derek Negron, I am the new principal, come to my school, it's going to be great. Then we started taking those middle school kids, and we started taking them to the high school and getting them mentored by the high school kids. So they're excited to go to the high school. Keep them in that feeder pattern. We call it feeder patterns. So we'll have 7, 8 elementaries, 2 to 3 middle schools, and 1 high school. So it's a feeder pattern. And we have 29 of those in Miami-Dade. That spring, that fall, after the spring, they had 78 kids sign up to Carroll City Middle School from 23, a 294% increase. So it worked. And they were able to buy a part-time teacher. So now we're teaching 2 classes, they have 4, and we have 6 teachers. And because of that, we move forward, and now I can say a few years later that Carroll City Middle School has a full-time music teacher. We just had our concert, our winter concert, and there was theater, there was dance, there was music, there was marching bands, and the auditorium was packed with parents who cared. And that marching band that used to be revered is now up to 104 students marching and dancing, and 8 students got a full ride to college last year. So that's what happens over time. So we're coming to the end of this fellowship. It was 1 year. And Rebecca leaned over and said, if all these people don't figure out how to actually collaborate together, not just 2 here and 2 there, this is dead. We were at Interlochen Center for the Arts. Luke was there. And I said something. I said, the only thing that's keeping us from working together is money. So if money was off the table, what would that look like? And in that moment, myself, Sheila from Arts from Learning, and Chad from Guitars Over Guns got together. We started talking. We're like, we're all in Miami Gardens. Why don't we focus on Miami Gardens? Which I was focused. I was in 5 schools of the 13. I was like, why don't we focus? What does it look like to plan together? When I got home, Rebecca said, write the draft, figure it out. Which started with emails with Dan Lewis asking me 2 questions at a time, which is really 15 questions at a time. And building the blueprints, I started visiting all the principals, doing inventory of all the equipment, seeing who was where, what did the principals want. We had 8 different organizations that we can offer them. And we came up with this strategy that was the birth of the Miami Gardens Music Alliance. And the strategy at the time, I know it says 19, but at the time the strategy was preschool to high school, in school to after school. We had 8 different providers to be able to give everything from a community orchestra to rock and roll, jazz, health and wellness, and the kids were able to work together and have opportunities. And every organization had their place without stepping on other people's toes, and we fed each other. And then we fast forward, now we're in 19 sites across Miami Gardens. These were the outputs we created for this collective impact project. Number one, partnerships and organizations. We meet quarterly as CEOs and leaders. We have a third-party Radical Partners help us facilitate PD with them. At first, there was no trust, and we didn't even know what each other actually did. Now we can all pitch each other's nonprofit easily in front of a funder at this point. Collective impact. We all use the same data, and we collect data from the district, which I'll go into more detail in a second. We have a cohort of principals. We have 2 cohorts because we expanded this project, one in the north, one in the south. So imagine meeting with the room with 19 principals twice a year, with all your program providers, and being able to talk about what's going on in the school through data, because these are data people. That's what they care about. Professional development, all layers, from program directors to CEOs to teachers. Teacher pipeline, we're focused on sharing teachers. What does it look like to train teachers together? We have a youth music festival. So imagine at the end of the year, you have this cross-section between government and school, board, organization, students, families, with over 500 students performing, with over 40 organizations. Community PTSA, and a summer scholarship program with Interlochen Center for the Arts. So that was the beginning and the ideas of this, and some things changed and some things grew, and it was a really, really bright vision. But we knew that we were onto something when, in the beginning, only 28% of students in the Carroll City feeder pattern picked up an instrument every single week. And now 81% of students are participating in free music education, arts education. And it's grown from there. And believe it or not, we have reduced the funding, but there's more funding going on in the area because the school has stepped up, other foundations have stepped up, the organizations have leveraged their dollars to be able to do more. So, this is a beautiful festival. 4th annual Miami Gardens. We're on our 4th year. It's coming up on March 1st. And it's truly a celebration of the children. We had about 2,000 people come out last year, and this year we're hoping 3,000. How do we measure impact? We have 3 different areas. One is positive youth development. Number 2 is academic outcomes. And number 3 is campus and community outcomes. So for positive youth development, we're working with Hello Insight, third-party platform, who works across the nation. So we're able to see data on a national level. And for us, one capacity means, well, what does that mean? That means a student is excited, it looks up to their mentor, they feel like they are supported by them, or they're excited to go to school, or they feel confident in themselves when they didn't before. So on a national average, 70% is your goal, and we are now at 94% in the high school, which is 24% over the national average. And it wasn't an accident. We first got our scores the first year, and we're like, oof, we're not doing that great. So we started building the training of the teachers with what we weren't doing, what we weren't good at. We celebrated the wins, but we focused on where we needed to grow. And because of that, we're able to cohesively work towards this mission of raising the scores, but it's really about being human with our kids and participating with them and looking at them, and not just, I'm here, I gotta teach, I gotta clock in, I gotta clock out. It's about building relationships. The second thing was academic outcomes. We have data from the district that we pull, which we're able to have collected our rosters. We submit it at the end of the year, and we're able to pull all this data. Attendance, behavioral infractions, course failure, and academic outcomes. We are right now in the midst of a huge data report that we're really excited about. And what we're seeing is, we're seeing when students are in the music classroom compared to their peers, we're seeing their grades go up, we're seeing their reading levels go up, we're seeing math scores go up. So we've been taking our time on releasing this. We want to make sure the language is perfect so we don't get hammered, because when arts organizations release reports like this, they usually get hammered. So we want to make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's. But we did have QQ Analytics do a report for us. And when they took the students in Carroll City and compared them to students of similar demographics from across the district, we saw a 60% reduction in absences and tardies. kids were excited to come to school. They show up more on the days that they have music. And it's just a fact. And the campus outcomes, these are hard metrics, everything from how many classes, how many students, how many schools. We measure all of that, and we keep count of it. How much has the school system put in? Are we STEM or STEAM certified? PTSAs. We want every school to have part-time, full-time music teachers. When we first went there, they hardly had any of that. Every school to have a dedicated storage facility so we're not breaking instruments every single day or being stolen. To attendance at winter and spring concerts and a youth music festival. And something really great is that we have a partnership with Interlochen Center for the Arts, and over 461 students have been able to go there for a month or two in the summer for free, which has been really, really beautiful. So at the end of the 3 years, which was a 3-year project, it was a pilot, Dan was like, all right, what's next? Rebecca called me. We talked. And I was just like, I want to scale to South Dade. South Dade is the hardest thing you can do. Because South Dade is an hour and a half south from Miami, like from what you know of Miami. Miami Beach, downtown Miami. And I've always been told that you can't do it because there's not enough teachers down there and no one's going to drive down there. So that was one. So I spent about 4 months thinking through this project and how we were going to do it. But before we did that, I met with all the CEOs. We had a conversation. I presented an idea. I got feedback. Created a Canva presentation. Got feedback. And once they were all signed on and said, we love this, we're ready to go, we had a unified plan. I was able to pitch to Dan Lewis a 5-year renewal to be able to continue in Miami Gardens, but to focus an expansion in South Dade in 3 different feeder patterns with 19 different schools. And he said yes. So the difference this time, instead of just going in, we spent a year researching the neighborhood, meeting with meeting with the mayor, meeting with the commissioners, school board members, getting their support, but also really understanding the area and how we're going to fix this issue with this teacher pipeline. So the program director started meeting every 2 weeks. And I was like, I'm going to be in school. You can work with me for 4 hours and then go to your program after school for 2 to 3 hours. Now all of a sudden a teacher's excited to drive down. But how do we solve this issue of 2 different kinds of programs because they're totally different? And we're able to work through that. And I'm happy to say that this fall we launched 19 schools with 9 different organizations, and it works. So it's not a pilot anymore. We have scaled. And it's all the same concepts. And we have heroes down there. We have Councilwoman Jennifer Bailey, Danielle Cohen-Higgins is a commissioner, school board member Mayor Blanco, and school board member Luisa Santos. So we're working together with all of these people. It's cross-sectional. And we'll have our first South Dade Music Festival coming up March 15th. Well, we can clap for that. So right now, Arts Access Miami is across 55 sites in Miami-Dade, where you can see a lot of those green dots in the top, which is your Miami Gardens Music Alliance. You see a lot of the orange dots in the bottom, which is the South Dade Music Alliance. And now in the middle, you're starting to see these random dots. Well, what is that? What we're realizing is that we can't do this alone. We have these titans of organizations that we're working with, but what about the other organizations? How do you help them grow? So we're starting to give them seed money and working with them, but also we want to expand in the center. So we're starting to make sure that when we do expand, it's not the same group of people, but we have other organizations that have grown because of that. So we're giving them professional development. We're doing workshops on grant writing. We're teaching them how to have an Excel sheet to be able to balance their budget. These are basic things that a lot of organizations, when they're starting out, just do not understand, or affiliating agreements. So we've been working with them and teaching them. So right now, 55 sites, over 11,000 students, 25 organizations, 428 classrooms, 300 plus performances, which sounds crazy, but everyone is required to do a fall and spring concert, and then that's infectious. And then the principals realized, well, why don't we just have a concert every single time we have an award ceremony? And then why don't we do it every time someone shows up? And then why don't we do it during the basketball game? And then before you know, there's concerts all the time. And we've seen that grow too. And I remember the first time when we were trying to do concerts, principals was like, what, why, who cares? That's just sounds too much work. And now it's a big part of their strategy to keep the kids in the school, and they understand that culture. Because it's we may think we're cool, but the kids don't think we're cool. Kids want to see other kids perform, and that's cool. So this is some of the infrastructure of how we make this work. So Young Musicians Unite serves as the backbone. When you have a collective impact project, you need one organization to serve as that backbone. So we serve as the backbone. And something I left out is the first time where we built the Miami Gardens Music Alliance and we had that 3-year project, I then backed out of the way, and Miami Foundation hired someone to be able to lead the project because I had to fulfill my promise, which is to be able to go into 13 schools. That was a lot of work for my organization. We were small. But this time around, we were in a position for leadership, and Dan refused to move forward unless someone stepped up from the cohort, and I decided to step up, and that we're in a position to do that. So we're the backbone. I hired a an arts access manager and coordinator who is that neutral party, and they're able to work with all the organizations and the alliances and help them with the data, help them with the instruments. They put together all the cohort meetings with the principals and everyone. And that's been a really great relationship because of that. We've also hired a lobbyist to the district and a lobbyist to the county. In the network, these are all of the organizations. So in the network, we have the Miami Foundation, which is Rebecca, and her foundation, which is the largest foundation in all of Miami. So as you can see, the ingredients: organizations, a backbone, philanthropists, and then you have a foundation. So a lot of different ingredients. So we took Ingenuity's Outlook map because of Delug's advice, and we're able to bring that to Miami, which every single school is logged into it. So we're able to see what programs are where, what do the principals want, what are they missing, and that's how we were able to go to South Dade. We did it based off data. And they're also focused on the network, the 200 plus organizations in Miami-Dade. Who are they convening, working with them, talking to them? We have MDCPS, which is who we serve. It's the children of MDCPS. And you have the community. To me, the community is everything. It's the students we serve, their parents, but it's also the philanthropy piece, the foundation piece, the concerts we put on. So this is how we look at it with the work that we're doing. When I first started looking into this work, and I kept hearing there's 200 plus organizations in Miami-Dade, 200 plus. I'm like, how the hell are we going to reunite 200 organizations? This is not going to happen. But then I started asking questions. I was like, well, how many actually go into a classroom? How many are direct service? How many are a beautiful symphony hall, but their focus is on adults and professional musicians, and then they have an education arm? So once we started splitting that up, I was like, okay, so we have direct and supplemental. And what I realized with the data is that there's only 48 direct youth service organizations in Miami-Dade. I was like, oh, 40, I can do that. So now our focus is starting to shift. We're with 25 of 48 already. So now, how do I work with the other 23? So this next year, for the fall moving forward, I want to figure out how to connect those. What do they need? What mentors, master classes, how can we do that? Money is obviously a thing that everyone needs. We don't have enough of that to be able to do that. But it's like, but can we do small things that help organizations? What is that lever that we can pull to be able to truly help them strive and to grow? And the reason for that is I have a goal of all of Miami. And you can't do all of Miami with 9, 10, 20 organizations. You're going to need about 50 organizations for about 400,000 students. So we have to think about the ecosystem and helping to grow leaders. These are all of our working groups. We have the CEOs of all the organizations, or presidents, directors. We also have the leadership of each principal cohort, sometimes school board members. But we have our leadership circle. We meet quarterly. Then we have the cohort of principals. They meet biannually, twice a year. We have the program managers. They're meeting every 2 weeks, which I'm trying to nip and trying to move it to once a month. It's a little bit much. But they're learning a lot, and they're excited about it. It used to be once a month. We have our marketing directors, which is quarterly. Because right now we're really starting to focus, like, how do we tell the story together? Which we did our first story, but it's like very focused on like me as a leader. And I was like, who's going to post that? How do we create a story that's for everyone? So we're focused on that right now. We're actually filming that. And then we have a cohort of teaching professionals. These teachers get trained twice a year. And 2 new projects is a teacher pipeline working group. I'll explain more. And the Arts Access MDCPS working group. So this is like, we don't have an arts plan in Miami. This is the closest thing to it. We just went to the superintendent and was like, we really need an LOU where we're working together and we streamline a lot of these issues, like affiliating agreements. And some organizations not starting till November, yet they're ready to start on the first day of school, but they're not allowed to because the paperwork didn't go through yet, even though they submitted it in June because your office is backed up. Just leaving the kids behind. There's money ready to go. Teachers trained, but because of a piece of paper. And I can go on forever for all these little things. So we're trying to streamline efforts and saying, instead of dealing with 55, 60 different organizations, why don't we figure out how to just deal with us? And then we can have a training workshop on affiliating agreements. And let's just like meet one day in that summer, make sure everyone shows up with it, and we can just approve all the paperwork right there. What does that look like? So these are the conversations we're having, and we're having it with the cabinet of the superintendent. And at the end of this, we're going to have one person per area, someone to help us in the marketing department, someone in the paperwork department, legal, and so on, so we can be able to streamline processes. The other issue that we're seeing, there's not enough teachers. Teachers come and go. And the school district needs certified music teachers. So we have 2 issues. One, in Miami-Dade, it's different in different places. We have 8 different openings for certified music teachers. So the kids are there, they have the money, but no one can go in and teach. And the school district can't reallocate the funds. So in New York, for example, they can reallocate the funds in those situations, and they reallocate it to education through music, who comes in with specialists, and they're able to fill those spots in those moments. So that way the kids are not left behind, because everything is about the kids. Everything is about not leaving the kids behind. So we saw that, and we went to the superintendent, and we said, we've seen these programs, these accelerated pipeline programs, if you have a communications degree, where you can go to a local college and after a semester, you are streamlined to be able to have a teaching certificate and go into the classroom. This exists, but does not exist for the arts. Why? And then you have these teachers from South America who went to the Juilliard of South America, and their degree doesn't count either. Why? So we started talking to the universities, FIU, MDC, and UM, and we're like, can we use this infrastructure to be able to build this artist-teacher pipeline accelerated path? And they're all just excited, like, yes, let's do it. Superintendent was excited. So we put a dinner together of the leaders of these universities, someone from the state office, the superintendent and his cabinet, Achieve, which are doing a TAP program, this accelerated program, but not for arts. We had the CEO of Artist Year come down, and then we had 2 different construction companies, because in Miami we have a credit for workforce housing. So it's like the idea is, can we have teachers that we bring in that are talented and give them a subsidized rent, because you have those tax credits for workforce housing, and they're living in a beautiful place, right? And don't have to pay $4,000 for that. What does it look like to have 8, 10, 12 of those in different areas? Everyone was really excited about this, which we're like, okay, this is great. So now we're talking through, well, what policy changes need to happen? How do you make this work? How do you bring this into your college? We're getting to the nitty-gritty. We're going to come together. We're going to have our letter. Everyone is going to sign it, and we're going to submit it to the DOE and the state legislator, and we're going to hopefully have some policy change in the next few months. And that is the goal for us, and I'm hoping that this program will start up in January at the colleges and we'll be able to move forward But these are the things that we're able to do together because we're working together and we're thinking together and we have these ideas and we're able to move quickly. So right now, phase one, between 2020 to 2028, we have $20 million raised and confirmed for this project, of which $6 million has come from other donors and about $14 million from Dan Lewis, who is the champion. 75,000 students is our goal, 85 sites, 12,000 instruments. And as you can see, we see the district in 5 regions. You have the north, which we have a flag. We have that infrastructure with Miami Gardens Music Alliance. We have the south with the South Date Alliance. And then you have the west, central, and east, which you see nothing. There's lots of organizations, but we do not have arts access there. So we're saying, what does it look like in phase 2 to be able to create that infrastructure in the central? To be able to have 26, 27 launch in the central. And for us, what does that take? That takes a minimum of $1 million a year for a minimum of a 3-year commitment. I need $3 million before I do that because I'm not just going to start it and try to figure out how to fundraise halfway through it. And then what does it look like to go to 27, 28 to have West Aid? And then what does it look like to be 28, 29 to have East Aid? That infrastructure built out. And when I say infrastructure, now you have every school board member excited, every commissioner excited, every mayor excited, that groundswell. By now, every single foundation is donating to us, so we're growing. So what comes next? Hopefully, it's county funding, federal funding, state funding, but some kind of ballot initiative if it's necessary, if it feels right. Right now, we're very overtaxed in Miami, and we have these 30, 40-year recertifications that are just strangling people, but hopefully in time we can get there. So phase 3 for us is, can we build a $25 million a year budget based off everything, this connection between everyone, and start building that infrastructure out? So now we're doing more and more feeder patterns because the infrastructure is there. And then we go up to $30 million and we have more schools, 35 million more schools. And we keep going until 2032, which is our goal. It might be 2036, but I'm planning to do this till I retire. To be able to have this wraparound arts education coalition of every single arts education organization in Miami-Dade working in every single school, filling every single gap, because that's the goal. We're gap fillers. It's like, well, how do you only do that with 50 million? Because we're not reallocating funds or taking away. If there's a school with an amazing program, then we're going to go to the school down the street, and then we're going to make sure they're partnering. We're filling the gaps. And based off what we've seen, it's going to take about 45 to 50 million dollars to be able to make this happen. But we're optimistic about it. And I just see, like, this is the thing that Miami needs, and this, I feel like this is the thing that a lot of people need in a lot of different areas, is like, how do you actually mobilize and get the organizations to work together collectively? Thank you so much.
I kicked him back on stage. Wow, right? If you're on the panel, would you come on up, please? And I'll do a little vamping here. As Sammy had different slides on the screen, I was thinking about different people in the audience, like the teacher training pipeline. I was thinking, oh, I bet you Liz over there from San Diego State and College of Ed is like, that's my slide. That's my slide. If you would just, like, I'm going to sit here, so if you'll just keep filing through. So there's a lot there to digest, obviously. And the idea now, do we have, are we missing somebody? Oh, Cody. Yeah, what happened to Cody? Okay. We have the president of the San Diego, there he is. He just wanted to make an entrance. I knew there was somebody. Yeah. So so the panel's job here now is to react to that. They had a chance to kind of to check out, Sammy on the website and that kind of thing, but haven't heard the presentation. So now there's like, ooh, a chance to react. and to start to provide some San Diego context, which all of you are, as I look around the room, there's a lot of knowledge in this room about San Diego and our situation and how, what can we take from this, right? So, and then Sammy is going to, be able to respond to that. But what I'd first like to do is just have each of you just briefly introduce yourselves, and then I'm going to start with the first question. So since, David, you're holding a mic, I don't know if it's on. Is the little green light? Ah, look at that.
Hello, is that working? Good enough? Good evening. I'm Felicia Shaw, Executive Director of San Diego Art Matters. We're an art service, an organization that serves the entire region. And we do have a plan that includes a focus on arts education and access. Our goal is to ensure that every child in every classroom has access to a well-rounded education that includes the arts.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adrienne Valencia, Executive Director of Arts Education Connection San Diego. We provide short-term arts education programs to local schools and community venues, and we work in 5 art forms with a cadre of about 35 teaching artists.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Pletner Saunders. I'm an arts consultant. Our firm is called the Cultural Planning Group, and as some of you know, we just completed San Diego's first cultural plan, Creative City. Thank you, Imani.
Thank you. I'm Cody Pedersen. I am the school board president at San Diego Unified, and I am trying to wrestle with how we're going to replace Russ Sperling next year. And I was realizing at lunch that both Nicole DeWitt and I, who's our interim deputy superintendent, was here. We're the 2 most grim people at the table today at lunch because that's the nature of being in leadership at a school district or a school board. So I'm going to try not to be grim here because there's a lot to be hopeful for at San Diego.
We've met you, so excellent. Thank you. I'd like to start with David. Could you pass the mic back down to David? And as we did a little prepping for this, David offered to give a little context and history of some of the initiatives that we've seen in San Diego. It's not like we're coming to this like it's brand new. So can you kind of fill us in a little bit?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And I was so pleased to be asked to be a part of tonight's program because, like many of you, my wife Victoria and I have been involved in arts education advocacy for many, many years, and it's been an up and down process. So it was nice to have a chance to reflect back, and I just wanted to share a couple of things. First is, as Sammy described, there are some communities, many communities in the United States where arts education is actually making progress, is working well. And there are some lessons to be gleaned from that. Sammy reflected many of those in what I would consider best practices from his planning and his advocacy and his management in Miami. But as many in this room will know, cities like Chicago, Boston, Nashville, Dallas, all have collective impact efforts to improve arts education, to increase the amount of arts instruction, to strengthen professional development, to advocate for arts education on young people, and to improve equity. And they share, generally speaking, a collective impact model. But the essential ingredients of those are what I kind of think of as like a civic compact. There is a grand agreement across sectors. They usually involve city government, school district, philanthropy, the arts community, and sometimes others. And they often involve a backbone organization, as Sammy described in Miami. So, I left out Los Angeles. Arts for All in LA is another great example. So we know that there are models. They're always customized to the nature of the city and the community, but they work. And as many of you know, in LA, for example, there's 82 or 83 school districts in LA County, huge. Miami-Dade has 1. It's gigantic. But the nature of the challenge in LA is different. And so over the years, their objective has been to help school districts create arts education plans and take on arts education in a systemic way. So that's the first part. Communities around the United States have taken on the hard thing and done it more or less well. Many of these efforts have been going for a decade or longer and have made significant progress with their ups and downs. So let's talk about San Diego. We have had a history of efforts to do that kind of model. The first one that I know about was 2001 to 2004, the Arts Education Partnership, which was a partnership of the school district, city government, philanthropy, arts community, and made a good run at it, but was not able to sustain itself. Yeah, there are a couple of other efforts. The San Diego Foundation got interested in arts education for half a minute, but never implemented it. And we've seen other efforts. The San Diego County Office of Education has been working the problem, although my friends in the field tell me that that program has become, just less active in recent years. So we have a gap in San Diego, and obviously the title of tonight's event, A New Vision for Arts Education in San Diego, really reflects that we haven't given up hope. But one of the things that my wife and I have been reflecting on in the last week, getting ready for tonight, is that we might have unique circumstances in San Diego and might need to approach it in a different way.
Thank you, David. Would you pass the microphone down to Felicia? So Felicia, if you might have some commentary on what David said, but I'd be curious also for your reaction to what Sammy presented.
Yes, I think your description of our history is accurate. And I think it all goes back to leadership. Those ups and downs and peaks and valleys has essentially been due to whoever was trying to lead the effort. As you know, we're not we don't have a culture of philanthropy here in San Diego like they do back east. We don't have big corporations that are based here who can help out. And so this civic will that you're talking about has to come from government, which is always restrained in some type of way. And so it takes people, ordinary people who might be commissioners, people who might be engaged in some of the nonprofits that we hope will step up, and they come and go. And so until we have that leadership, that institution that everyone feels is neutral enough, trusted enough, able enough, and funded enough to take on the backbone work, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to get traction and sustain it. The other thing I'll say is we get geared up and fired up when there's something going on. Prop 28. Oh, yeah, let's go after that. There's something that we can see and fight for. And then it gets really quiet. It's really quiet now, right? It's really quiet. I think keeping the foot on the gas is very hard in San Diego. We have to have this constant din of talking about the value of arts education to everyone who will listen. Parents, teachers, businesses, and telling that story over and over and over again. Until we have that consistency of messaging about why, I think even a collective impact approach, which I love, I like the structure of it, I like what it does, but this lack of education about the why is not embedded in it's not in our DNA. And now we have a whole new generation of young people. The millennials have kids in schools now. The millennials did not get what they needed. And so they can't preach the gospel because they didn't go on any field trips either. They didn't have any music in their lives either, right? So what can they share? So we missed that generation. I think before we get started with this effort, and we will, I have every confidence that we're ready for it, because all I'm hearing right now is collaboration, partnership, connecting, communicating. I'm hearing it, and people are serious about this, about not competing with each other. But we have to do some basic re-educating right now about the value of arts education in our lives and get everyone, we need to socialize that message so that we're all feeling it before we set out on this journey.
Thank you, Felicia. Adrian, what's on your mind?
Oh my gosh, how much time do I have? I'm just kidding. I would like to reiterate or piggyback on what Felicia's saying. We have so many of the right components here in San Diego. We have wonderful school districts. We have wonderful arts education nonprofits or nonprofits that have a focus in arts education. We have committed teachers and parents, but it's been difficult to put all of those pieces together. I don't know that we have that collective vision. That's something that jumped out at me when Sammy was talking. Just to have somebody say, this is the direction that we're going in. The comment about silos is so true. I will say that my colleagues in the nonprofit arts sector are very collegial and collaborative. They're wonderful. We have wonderful respect and admiration for the work that each organization does. So I have never felt a competitive spirit among my colleagues. But we're all just, trying to do the work that we're supposed to be doing that's in our mission statement. And so having an extra thing, which is necessary, but we just don't have a paid person. Sammy was talking about, he hired somebody to oversee the alliance. That makes 100% sense. It makes a huge difference when you have a staff person who is paid to implement and get the input from everybody around them and move things forward. We do have some collective organizations. We have some, volunteer-run organizations here in San Diego, but we're all really busy, and volunteers come and go, like you were saying. They come and go, and they might be on fire one year, and then the next year they're like, I'm burned out. So I think those are the things that occur to me, that we really do need to have that collective vision, a paid person to implement, and more communication among like the arts nonprofits and the school districts, Create California, the county commission. Everybody is doing great work, but nobody knows what's really going on. So I would say those are the things that are on my mind.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah.
It's Cody's turn. So Cody has been on the school board for just over 2 years and was recently elected as board president, and had a super challenging meeting on Tuesday night from a procedural perspective. It could be a podcast, right?
It could definitely be a podcast.
Not to do with the arts, I should say. But so from your perspective, and you're a lifelong San Diegan, you're familiar with the philanthropic community, you're familiar with the school district, you've got kids in the school system. You know San Diego quite well and the political sphere as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you listen to Sammy talk, how does this all work in San Diego?
So right out of the gate, I'll say I'm an elected official, and elected officials are often the dumbest person in the room because of the way we elect elected officials and our nature of our campaign finance. But we are always the least informed person in the room. And so I will say, with regard to the subject matter, I am fairly uninformed, although I'm a fairly quick study. And what I will say right out of the gate, I'm an anthropologist by training and trade. I did my PhD at UCSD, and I actually did a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing at the Iowa Writers Workshop. So in an other life. I'm a detoured artist, not a frustrated one, but I will say right out of the gate, taking a sort of meta perspective on the panel, when there's a problem, that we're facing a problem in a subject that's clearly on its face, bigger than this panel and bigger than the time allotted. So I will just say, it's clear we're just going to scratch the surface here, but it's something that, I mean, I don't know the subject matter that well, but I can just see that and sense that. So it's probably something that we could do a workshop on, or many workshops, but at least have an introductory workshop because it's clearly a very big subject. I'll say, I entered San Diego Unified, I guess I haven't done the math exactly, but probably around 1979 in La Jolla Cluster at La Jolla Elementary, which is the year directly following Prop 13. So, I came up through in Bungalowville, and when this sort of the bloodletting began with the arts education, and I was raised in a sort of typical Philistine family, and every once in a while we had symphony. There was a couple trips to symphony, and I remember very vividly. I mean, it was my first exposure to high art, and we clapped before the conductor dropped his hands, and I will remember the rest of my life. I remember as like there was a punitive edge to it. I felt guilty, but I also felt like I'm part of this thing. I mean, the clapping is part of this thing. It's part of, and so it was an early experience, and I think for a lot of kids who are raised in an environment in which maybe their parents aren't into the arts or their community's not necessarily into the arts, it's a long journey to the arts. I mean, for me, it wasn't until I got to Berkeley and just wasn't exposed to it. And so one of the things I would say is, and I'll tell you from a school board perspective, which is we're really just specialists if we're doing it right, we're specialists in our community. We know our community, we're rooted in our community, we spend a lot of time engaging in our community, and our job is to ensure that the governance of the board, you could have a superintendent run the show on their own, really, but what the school board system is that we guarantee that the administration of the school district is aligned with the interests and values of the community. It's a very old institution, hundreds of years old for us. And so what I would say is one of the challenges, and we face this with Prop 28, we live in a ferociously capitalist world in which, I also come out of environmental organizing where there was a move maybe 20 years ago to start talking about the Brazilian Amazon as think about all the medicines we're destroying as we, it was about, the pharmaceuticals that we could get out of the Amazon if we kept it alive. And then it was like, it's the lungs of the planet. But it was never, we need to preserve the Amazon to be the Amazon. And you see the same with VAPA, where because of the rigors of what everybody knows their kids have to grow academically and achieve academically, and they're desperate because they know they're going to be thrown out into a fairly cruel world in which there's been 22% inflation over the last 5 years, and housing has inflated 22% on top of that in real terms. So people are understandably desperate. 60% of our students are free and reduced price meals qualified, meaning they're economically disadvantaged. And even the ones that are advantaged, my kids are coming up in La Jolla Cluster, they're not like comfortable. Everybody, even at the very top, they're level grinding because they know they're going to have to have 2 physicians in the family to afford to live here. They're going to need to, so everyone in a sense is desperate. And not only is then VAPA, well, what does VAPA do? What does it do for us? It reduces absenteeism. It develops kids cognitively. I mean, you know all the justifications you're forced to do about VAPA. When really, what the message about VAPA is, it is visual and performing arts. We shouldn't have to subordinate it to all these collateral benefits it has, but what it comes down to, and this is kind of where I'll close, and the challenge around that comes back to the philanthropic community, it really is ultimately about, you can see how it goes. The Amazon is for pharmaceuticals, and VAPA is for reducing absenteeism, but what it really comes down to is, what is the human about? What is the child about? Because in the end, it's the child's going to We're going to improve our ELA scores. We're going to improve our math scores. We're going to improve. VAPA is going to assist in career and college readiness. But in the end, you're left with children whose only function, we're constantly telling them ultimately that their only function is to go out and get a job and make a handsome profit for somebody. And so the challenge when you're on a board and you're trying to figure out how to allocate funds, and this is why Prop 28, well, we can talk about, about what's happening on Prop 28 across the state, but at the very least, even if there's some backdoor supplanting going on, it is a backstop to this relentless focus, and it's forced on us because in the end, they're going to hold us account. It's not like they're going to hold, you know, they being the electorate, they being the media, they being parents. Let's set aside all the other stuff. The parents and the children themselves are going to say, did you prepare me for college? Did you prepare me for my career? And so we're relentlessly being forced to allocate in a way that is aligned with the understanding of this hard line. Can I earn enough money to pay rent to live in this community? Which is why, and this is my closing, this is why it is so fundamental to have philanthropy, because the district and the state and the government is always ultimately going to be held accountable on this, did you prepare my child to survive in this very cruel world? And we can have a Prop 28 that backstops it somewhat, but in the end, you're going to need philanthropic partners. And I would say it's not that there's not a lot of, read San Diego Business Journal. There are. This is an engine. I mean, an economic engine. It's just uniquely tech and biotech, you know, Qualcomm. I mean, go to UCSD UCSD campus. Half the buildings are named after Qualcomm, you know, founders or Intuit founders. They're there, but in large part, with regard to VAPA, or they're at the symphony. Go to the symphony, same thing. With regards to VAPA and our schools, they're on the sidelines. And so a lot of this, and I don't know, and this is where Sammy's, I mean, if only we had Sammy's presentation to be taking to all these donors, because there are donors in this town. But I do think we need a concerted effort and a systemic effort, and I think you can speak to what San Diego Unified has as a, and I hope you're speaking to that. I hope that's not my part, because that's a very important thing. We have put in place a system that can collaborate, that is prepared to collaborate, and is prepared to take funds and know and have a structured, systematic way of putting those funds to good use for the least among us and for all of our students. So that's how I'll close.
Thank you.
Oh, you have your own.
Yeah, I have my own mic. Are you sure you should have gone into politics? Because you're a little like, you're like honest. Like that was very, very transparent of you. I wasn't really going to talk about San Diego Unified, but I mean, I think one of the reasons that Delu, there he is, he's still there, connected us was because, as Sammy mentioned, there's no arts plan in Miami-Dade. We're on our second one, so, and we did that as a community. So there's some things that I think we've done internally as a district, and also the way that we approached Prop 28, even though we had to kind of fight the battle and make sure it was done right, and you were on the right side of that. I'll add that Ann Fennell's right here, that we were like, we needed to put on our advocacy hats to make sure that was done correctly. But so we have a really, I'll just say, objectively as I can, we've done a lot of work in San Diego Unified. We have become a national model for arts education within the district. However, I will say that it's not enough. I told Sammy, yeah, Prop 28 buys a half an hour of instruction for elementary school kids a week in arts. And what did you say it was like?
It's wild. We at least have 1 hour a week. What do you do in half an hour? You take attendance, you show up, and then you say bye-bye. You do nothing. Nothing happens in half an hour.
Well, so we actually do an hour every other week, actually, is what we end up doing. So so we just don't have enough, and we don't think it's good enough for kids. And I think what Cody just said about the need for philanthropy is I think there's this, I keep encountering this attitude in San Diego about we pay our taxes, arts education is the school district's job. Now go do your job. And so you've heard it from the school board president. We're not ever going to get to what at least us in this room think that our kids should have unless we have philanthropy with us. And we also just heard that the money's out there, but we have not figured out how to get it. So what should we do?
So I had lunch and I had a presentation, and I'm here now. And at both situations, I'm seeing the cross-sectional convergence of everyone. And I'm really impressed. You have the ingredients. You guys are already working together. So, I said this to Caitlin, is you just need a big, bold vision that you're excited about. And if VAPA is the leader of that, then great. And that's your retirement project with Caitlin. People like him don't stop working, so that's a lie. But come up with that big idea. Test it with the organizations. Have conversations. You're not going to see eye to eye on everything, but if you can get to 80%, that's why you need that one organization to lead, because they have to listen. They'll take 80%, but the last 20%, you just have to go on your gut. You have to. And you have to trust the organization to do that, or nothing will ever happen. But dream really, really, really big. And then you have a vision that you can share with philanthropy. Make a beautiful presentation. You have to sell it, and also have your plan in writing for people who don't want to see pictures, because you can't just send this to someone, right? You need to present, but what is the thing without that, right? So do all that work. You have Luke here, who is a badass and understands this work in and out. So you have a lot of people in this community who are eloquent, who understand the work, who understand collective impact. So I just think that's what's the next thing is, what is the goal? What does it look like? Who's going to step up? Who's going to make the presentation, the blueprint? Who's going to be willing to stand in front of the room and have darts thrown at them? That's what I call it. When you're standing in front of an arts organization, you're like, I want to do, right? And you have to be just willing to take it in stride. But as long as you have that agenda on what are the plans, where you're going, and it's just a little bit at a time. But what you really need is that, once you get that, you need that hero. You're going to need that philanthropist who's not just going to write a check, but is also going to be involved. And then you need to leverage those dollars to get more philanthropy. And the organizations need to leverage those dollars to be able to get more philanthropy on their own without even just collective thing. And everyone needs to be able to grow. Because that's something I did leave out, is that all the organizations, those 9, 10 organizations, every single one of them have tripled, quadrupled in size because we've leveraged. It was the first time in Miami that we've ever had a 6-figure multi-year grant. It's like, I'm gonna get $300,000 for 3 years? That's incredible, right? And I was able to leverage that, and then Perez family did 2-year grants, and then Elma Philanthropy did a 3-year grant. And then Children's Trust changed their 3-year program to 5 years and made it more accessible for people. And all of a sudden, everyone's doing multi-year giving, which allows you to not have that rat race of where's my money going to come from next year? Where's my money? Like, you can't build without multi-year gifts. So if you're going to do this, you need to go to philanthropists and say, I'm not, like, thank you for your $20,000, but no thank you. Can you give us $100,000, and can you guarantee that for 3 years? Right? And that's the kind of stuff that you need. But what you really need is about $2 million a year to be able to really get this going. But at least $1 million. And who's going to step up to do that? Because a lot of them, you have to give money out. You need to do data. You need administration. It's a lot of work. It's not just you hire one person and you go. Right? So there's just things to think about.
So as I reflect on my 10 years in San Diego Unified, I think we focused very much on the internal in building what was out. And then we did start the VAPA Foundation in 2017 to start doing this work. But I will say that I think, and we have some board members here tonight, which I thank you for being here, Joe, Tom, Larry, Holly. There you are, right next to Tom, yeah. I think we maybe have been a little afraid to build out that big hairy audacious goal plan. I think that's my aha today from being around you. So I'm seeing that I'm looking at the time, I'm looking at the room, and I know that it would be great for us to have some conversations out in the lobby because I'm sure there's still more food. Well, there was a ton out there when I looked last. So feel free to do that. But I just want to make sure that if there's anybody on the panel, since we only got through once, if there's any other comments that anybody wants to make. Oh, David, I thought you were saying no.
No, I'm saying I'm good.
You're good. Okay. Okay. But yes, Delug. And then Caitlin, do you want to come up and after Delug talks, put a? Why not?
One of the exercises that I did with the Miami group at the very, very beginning, I actually saw the results of in Sammy's presentation, but he didn't point it out to you, so I'm going to point it out to you. I took them through an exercise where I demonstrated to them how we built our constituency in Chula Vista, who we paid attention to in order to do that, in order to basically build power fundamentally. And what we did at that time is we paid first and foremost attention to the kids and the parents. And by cultivating continuity of attention on the kids and the parents, we drew in the kind of obvious power players. So when you presented today, you were showing how in the early stages of the Miami Gardens work, you were focusing on the festivals, you were focusing on the campus concerts, you were focusing on the experiences of the kids and the families and the principals, people that are most proximate to the work itself. And it was only when you started talking really about the South Dade that you mentioned, now we've got the school district representatives involved, now we've got the mayor involved. So I just want to highlight that we often think that the people that need the most attention are the school board members, but in fact, it's the community members, and the community members' presence and participation will get the attention of the school board members.
I remember when Duluth did that presentation, he had us in a circle and he had white yarn or something like that, and he started wrapping a spider web and like going back and forth and back and forth, and I remember that was really illuminating for me. I was like, wow, you're able to get all those people to actually care, and they're all focused on the same thing? How do you do that? And I've never heard that before. So that was, so I have learned a lot from San Diego, even though this is my first time ever being here, right? And you guys are learning from Miami, but that's what it is. It's about that culture exchange and having great leaders. And once again, someone like Delug who has seen national organizations grow. I remember the first time, I was like, Delug, we're supposed to be this backbone, but what does that mean? He's like, yeah, be the hub. I was like, have you ever seen someone be a hub? He's like, yeah, there's a few examples. So we still have to follow up on that conversation. But we're always trying to have the best learnings from different organizations and what's going on, and you're always learning. Because this work is, you're going to fail every single day, but the question is, how are you going to get up and how are you going to change direction and keep going? Like, do you have a machine that can change direction quick enough? That is the thing that you need to be able to figure out. Being slim and nimble is amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sammy, for joining us on the West Coast, and welcome to San Diego for your first trip. I'm delighted that we were able to bring you out here for your first time. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I am not going to take too much time, except for I want to say, I think we're past dreaming. I think we're past thinking big. I think we're past imagining the possibilities, and I think this is our call to action. What are we going to do? We have a blueprint, we have a model, we have inspiration. I have Sammy's phone number and his email. Say, Sammy, come out next year and tell us how we've been doing after your last visit. This is our time, San Diego. This is our chance to bring all of the pieces together. Adrian said it. We have all the pieces. We have all the pieces, and we have all the dedicated and passionate people in the room to make this incredible work happen. Let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you.